The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Friends in Recovery podcast, the podcast that is here to help you, a loved one, or a friend get started down the road to recovery. This is the Friends in Recovery podcast, brought to you by the Genesis House. Genesis House, providing a safe, nurturing environment to heal from addiction since 1992. Please be a friend and share our message with a friend on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or YouTube. And now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Hey, welcome everybody to Friends in Recovery Podcast.com. And we're here in the lovely, beautiful, very ample Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. I'm Mike Miles.
And I'm Ed Chionchio, and that's the Podfather.
Yeah, and I am the Podfather.
Yes, and
we have Ed Sullivan over there.
As always.
That's it. And Ed's a
guy you
producer.
it's a guy you can't see, right?
No,
he's a voice. We don't even see him.
No.
There's nobody over there.
We don't even see him.
Sometimes I feel invisible.
Maybe we see him too much.
He's sick of us by the time we're done with this show.
Yeah, that's right. So, Ed, good to be back.
Thanks, Ed.
Yep.
Thank you for everything.
Yep. And good to be here today.
Absolutely.
So we were talking earlier about our topic. We usually get here and we discuss what we want to discuss, and we're a low budget show, so we don't really talk much about it during the week. However, I think our topic today is a very good topic, and we decided
before we get into that, let's do the business piece.
Okay, you do the business piece.
I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're now live streaming on Facebook Live, so you can see us today on Facebook Live. If you're not watching us on that, you can switch over to Facebook Live, and also make sure you subscribe. Subscribing is important to us, important to you getting the show every week. So hit that subscribe button on however you're getting this podcast. Even if you come across it like so many people do, we're actually getting pushed up in the ratings and ranks. So if you come across it, just hit that subscribe button too. Is that correct, Ed?
Sure.
Am I talking the right lingo? Okay.
Well, on Facebook, they would like or follow the page.
Okay.
On YouTube, you would subscribe.
Okay.
And then on any of their podcatchers, whatever app they use on their phone, they can subscribe there.
Perfect. So we need you to do that. And last but not least, also, make sure you share this, because this is something that needs to be shared. Our show needs to be shared. People need to hear this. People need to get this information that we get out there. A loved one that might be suffering, or a family member that might be suffering.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and then of course, we want to thank Taylor and Genesis House for doing this for us. It's a pleasure and an honor to sit here with you, Mike, and talk
it should
about
be.
Gee, thanks.
Yeah. No.
I think we're doing a show on humility now.
Yeah.
We just changed that topic.
No, it really is. It is a pleasure to be doing this and having Genesis support us and be part of this. Without a doubt, I think it's been 15 or 16 months.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate.
We have, absolutely.
And I think we've made some life-changing decisions for people that needed help, and they went down to Genesis House in Florida, and they came back to wherever their prospective cities or towns are, and they're better off for it.
Absolutely.
And I've been in the recovery business a long time, as you have, and we know it doesn't always go swimmingly, and it certainly doesn't always have success at the end.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't.
But I think we've had a lot of successes, a lot more successes than failures as a result of using Genesis House and the staff down there.
Yeah. So thanks, guys, at Genesis House. So our topic is, before I rudely interrupted you.
No, I'm glad you did.
We had to get the business piece out.
Yeah, we talked about methods we use, to stay sober, to stay away from mind-altering chemicals, booze, drugs.
Maintaining our sobriety.
Yeah, just maintaining a sober life.
Yeah.
And it's not as hard as people think it is. I mean, it seems insurmountable in the beginning, but it certainly it can be done, and it can be done quite easily if you really want to stay sober.
Well, easy. What do you mean easy? I mean, what's the easiest thing you could do to stay sober?
I think the methods are easy, and in the beginning, it's going to be difficult because you're going to need a good detoxification. You're going to need to kind of restructure yourself for about 90 days, and I think 90 days is a real good timetable to get yourself sober, to start fixing some of the wreckage of the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your finances, your personal life,
Yeah.
and your own physical, mental health. But I think once you have a good 3 months of sobriety under your belt, which sounds difficult for some people, but you can do it one day at a time.
Yeah, that's how we do it. Even all these years later, we do it one day
at a time. And if you can do anything for one day, sometimes you have to do it 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time.
Yeah.
But you can do it.
Yeah.
And
but I think the maintaining piece is the important piece. Listen, the rehab is really important. But once you leave the rehab, such as Genesis House or any rehab,
right,
you got to maintain this. And just because just because you go into a treatment program like Genesis House, you're not done.
Correct.
You're not done.
Right.
You got to keep going, because look at rehab and detox as a foundation, and you build off that foundation.
Right.
You always want to keep your house nice. You always want to change things, or keep the up-to-date kitchen, or to keep the up-to-date floors, or whatever.
Sure.
You're not going to change the foundation, because that's the
Right.
bones that it's been built on. But you want to change all that other stuff, and that's, I think, the easiest thing to do to maintain your sobriety is go to an AA meeting.
Yep.
The easiest thing, right?
Number one.
I mean, what do you think?
Right, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am.
And that'll keep you sober.
Absolutely.
You know?
And there's so many. They're everywhere. You can look. I'm sorry. I was going to say you can look in a phone book.
No.
What's a phone book?
Yeah. It's those things on a curb you throw away,
Right.
isn't it?
you can Google Alcoholics Anonymous. It'll come up in your area, and then you Google Alcoholics Anonymous or AA meetings, NA meetings, whatever meetings you just said.
Yeah.
I always do AA only because it's been around for over 90 years. Almost 90 years. It's been around. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Every city, every town has at least 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meetings.
Yep.
Days, nights, weekends, every holiday. If there's a meeting in a building, guaranteed, it's 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
You know?
And holidays, real quick, get back to holidays around in AA is amazing. Christmas,
Thanksgiving, right.
They have these alcothons.
St. Patrick's Day,
They have alcothons where they go 24 hours usually,
Right.
On those special holidays. So
New Year's Eve,
New Year's
right.
Eve, if you're feeling like kind of shitty or whatever, you go to a midnight meeting over at the club, at the AA club, or you'll find an alcothon everywhere in
Right.
every city. You might have to take a 15-minute drive to get to it. Might not be in a little town, but it'll be in the bigger kind of towns around you. But I can't tell you, Mike, how many times I was at an alcothon for meeting after meeting after
Right.
meeting in early sobriety,
Yep.
and eating food. People bring food to these alcothons and keep you busy, and because it gets hard around the holidays sometimes,
sure.
So that's important too, is those alcothons. And 4th of July is coming up. What's the next holiday? Is 4th of July, Memorial Day.
Memorial Day's next week.
No, well, that's
this weekend,
yeah. So, but 4th of July is the next big holiday,
Right.
And there's alcothons. Go to a meeting. I mean, that's the basics things you can do, and also calling your sponsor and staying close to. It sounds like a lot, but that's really the basic things. Calling your sponsor and staying close to friends in recovery, also, but friends in recovery, basically.
Sure.
So.
And you have a phone. You meet people in meetings that have the same problem you have. They might be older than you. They might be younger. They might be completely different ethnicity, whatever. You're going to meet people that you're going to gravitate towards. And you know what? It's good to get their numbers. It's good to have someone to talk to that's going through the exact same thing as you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people from this generation and the millennials, I guess they call them, I think it's harder for them to know how to socialize, only because their social network is limited compared to what it was, several generations ago. With the phone, with texting, with email, with Snapchat, with everything like that.
Yeah.
So they might be a little uncomfortable. I see 5 kids standing at a bus waiting for a bus in the morning. They're not talking. Everyone's individually on a phone. So what I'm saying is, when you go to a meeting, leave your phone in your pocket, sit and listen to the speakers. After the meeting, help pick up the chairs, help do a little bit of the work. Get to introduce yourself to people. Go up, tell them you're new. Hey, I'm new. I'm trying to get sober.
And people flock around you when you tell them they're new, because people love to help people, especially in AA meetings, because that's going to keep them sober. They're going to listen to what you're having to say, and that'll keep them sober too.
Correct. Correct.
And the phone. Is a heavy piece of equipment when you need to call somebody. But do you remember that we were just talking before? Do you remember when we we would have to go home and make a phone call.
Yep.
To now
Sure.
you can be in your car if you're having a bad day.
right.
You don't have to get pissed off at somebody. You just pick up your phone and you
Got it right
and
there.
you go. So
We'll be right back. We'll take a quick break. And this is Friends in Recovery Podcast.com. I'm Mike Miles. That's God Podfather.
and I'm Ed Chionchio. We'll be right back.
Genesis House is a premier substance abuse and rehabilitation facility located in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. We have been providing the highest quality of addiction treatment since 1992 and are accredited by the Joint Commission. We offer a range of programs that include detox, residential treatment, dual diagnosis, a Christian track for people who want to incorporate their faith into treatment, a uniform services track, and we work with most major insurance carriers. Genesis House is led by a dedicated team of administrative and clinical professionals, and we stand on our commitment to excellence in recovery services. Contact us today to find out more about our program. Take the first step and call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 or visit us on the web at www.genesishouse.net. That's 800-737-0933 or www.genesishouse.net. Begin your journey to a long and successful recovery with Genesis House.
That was quick, huh? Welcome back to Friends in Recovery Podcast.com here in Studio 21, Podcast Café. A beautiful place, and
It is.
it's good to be back. It really is. It's good to be doing the show and
Yep. We're going to be doing it weekly now.
Getting back out there weekly.
Yep. Everybody look for their emails. Skylar will send everybody out those great emails that
Right.
it comes out every Tuesday. And if you want to get on this, if you want to get on our email list, you can email Skylar. It's SKYLERN at genesishouse.net, or you can send us an email here to info@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. And or you can call us, Mike. If you need help, Mike gives out his phone number all the time.
978-746-1717.
And of course, you can always call Genesis House at 800-737-0933 and discuss whatever you want to discuss with either
Absolutely.
one of those phone numbers.
Sure.
So
And to get back what we were talking about, communication's everything in life. It really is. I
Yeah.
mean, if you don't tell somebody you're having a hard time, they're not going to know. And this if you're not an alcoholic or a drug addict, nobody goes through life without some type of problems.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get sober and you're having a hard time, your life might be in turmoil, and you might think it's overwhelming and you're not going to get there. But you know what? You will. A day at a time, you truly will. And things get better. It takes time.
Oh yeah.
And we used to have a little segment, Time Takes Time.
Yeah.
And obviously it speaks for itself. But as time goes on, days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and months turn into years.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay sober, it's
We do it one day at a time, just
That's
like
it.
everybody else.
That's it.
We're no better than anybody else. I mean, it doesn't matter how much time you have. We just have some
Day at a
knowledge
time.
that we can pass
right.
on.
We have a day. We all have today.
Yeah.
And you can't worry about yesterday. You can't worry about the future. Yesterday's over. There's nothing you can do. Any mistakes you've made along the way, you know what? And if they're rattling your head and you're worried about it and you're feeling guilty, there are methods. There are step meetings, and you can get into the steps. There's 12 steps of recovery. You can go to step meetings. You can read.
Yeah.
You can discuss. You'll feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
The more knowledge you get about recovery and addiction, the better you're going to feel. You're going to realize this is a disease.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you know what, Mike? The next normal, natural step after the AA meeting and the sponsor and all that is working the steps.
Working the steps.
Working the steps is another way to hugely maintain your sobriety. Maintaining yourself in sobriety. I don't care if you're 1 day old or if you're 25 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In recovery years, I'm talking. You always need to work the steps.
Right.
My sponsor always tells me normal human beings live their steps every day.
Right.
We don't have that in us to
Right.
do that. We have to read them on paper. We have to go through our sponsor. We have to do the third step. We have to do everything. Work all the steps. That's what we have to do to stay sober. And listen, if that's what it takes to keep me sober, I'll do it.
Sure.
It's simple, but for us as addicts, it's really hard.
Sure. Alcohol addiction, drug addiction, it's a threefold disease. It's a physical disease as it affects you physically. It's a spiritual disease, no doubt about it.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about whatever you believe.
Your soul, your
know,
soul sick.
and-
If you know, got to
and it's
get rid of that.
and it's a mental disease.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, you know, depression is the common cold of most people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Anxiety, panic. You know, I know there's somebody sitting right there listening now, and they're probably having a panic attack.
Yeah.
They had one earlier. They're going to have one later.
Yeah.
And you know, it's almost like a freight car going down the railroad tracks, and you can't stop it.
Nope.
It comes, you know, and you think you're losing your mind. You think you're going to die. You think,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're going to stop breathing. Whatever malady you're getting out of this panic or anxiety attack, just remember, you've had many of them before. You're going to have some more
It'll
ahead
pass,
of you,
yeah.
right?
And they'll
But-
get fewer and fewer, though.
Right, but
Yeah.
if you are connected to somebody in the program, you can call, you can talk to them. You can go to a meeting, you can raise your hand, you can say, "Hey, I'm Joe, I'm new. I've been having these crazy panic attacks."
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day when the Big Book was written, back in the 30s, I mean, there's some really interesting stuff in the Big Book. Big Book is the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, but they talk about the unknown fears. They didn't know the word anxiety
Nope.
then. They didn't
Yes.
know the word panic.
Yeah.
They called it the unknown fears,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what people had. You know, I've seen people with DTs that are hallucinating. I used to drive the police wagon back in the day when I was a young cop, and
You're still a young guy.
well, thanks, Ed.
Ed's the old one in a bunch.
But I'd have guys that that were, they'd sleep out in the weeds. They were just bums, and they had no money, no place to live. They had a bottle of port wine in their pocket, and I'd pick them up, and they'd be there for the weekend. And by 12 hours into their stay in one of the cells, they'd be having DTs. So back in the day, they can't do this nowadays, but we'd go out and we'd get them cheap booze and give them a sip. Give them a sip, 3 or 4 times a day, 5 times a day throughout the day, maybe more. Just give them a little belt because they needed it. Because if not, they would have had convulsions.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's not So, but the anxiety. I remember in early recovery I had a lot of anxiety, and I would call somebody and it would go away. And I was fortunate to work in a place where there was other recovering people. It wasn't in a treatment center. It was just a regular box store I worked in, and there was some people in recovery there. And whenever I had this anxiety attack, I would knock on my one friend's door and say, "Got to talk to you."
Sure.
And he was always there for me, man. He was in recovery, and he was always there for me. So.
And at 2 people talking that are in recovery, that's a meeting.
Yep.
You and I talk. We talk on the phone.
Yep.
If we're doing something, for Genesis House or for ourselves,
Yep.
We discuss it. We go out to eat, whatever we do.
Yeah. Here's this helps me right here. Us talking.
Exactly.
This is basic. It's just talking about what we've been through, and you guys are listening. You can turn a podcast on and get out of that.
Our producer Ed Sullivan said something at the break as we were going to the first break, and he was right. The millennials now, this new generation, I mean, they know how to use this phone upside down.
Yeah.
And you know what? All you got to do is ask for meetings close to where you are.
Yeah.
And it'll show you 50, 60 meetings. I guarantee it.
And there's a meeting any time of day too. Depending on where you're at, but most of the time you can get to a meeting, lunch, breakfast, dinner.
Right.
Midnight meetings. Some of the best meetings I ever went to was a midnight meeting.
Right.
It was a candlelight meeting. And,
Is that right?
And, oh my
Yeah.
God, they turn the lights off and it's quiet. You kind of just can sit there and meditate. And meetings are just phenomenal. I never went to a bad meeting. Never.
I've never left a meeting feeling worse than when I walked in.
No.
I always feel better.
Might not have been a good speaker, or maybe couldn't identify with them. But you know what? I was sober. I stayed there. I listened to the word, and maybe that one thing I just pulled out of that. It might have been one sentence out of the whole hour, but it kept me sober. It keeps me sober.
When I first came around AA, and I'm sure you too, they said, the old timers said, hey, go to meetings, ask for help, and don't pick up. That's the other thing too. Is I didn't know I could say no. When I first got sober, I didn't really have urges right away. I didn't. And all of a sudden, I was walking to a meeting one time. I had no car. And I was walking by a bar room, and just the smell of the door was open. I could smell the stale booze.
Dirty, shitty smell.
Yeah, just a horrible smell.
Booze, I know.
It was so
we
inviting,
love it, though.
so alluring,
I know.
And I had an urge to drink, and I went to the meeting like I was on fire, and I thought I had done something wrong.
Yeah.
I said, I'm thinking about drinking. Everyone laughed. They said, well, you're an alcoholic. You're supposed to be thinking of that. And that was the first time I learned to say no. I fought that urge, and when that urge went away, it was like I never had it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel ashamed.
Yeah.
And I got a few more over the years. And once in a while, even now, if things aren't good or whatever, they can be too good or too bad.
Yeah.
I might have an urge, but I think it through. I think,
Yeah.
all right, so I'll pick up a drink, then what?
Yeah.
I'm going to want more. I'm
Yeah.
going to want to do something different.
Well, there's this. I mean, if you think the drink through is what we usually say in the rooms. You think the drink through. You come out into a meeting and you're fine. But if you go pick up that drink, there's going to be a lot of consequences.
Oh, you're starting all over again.
You're starting all over. All that anxiety, everything is building up again. You just have to get through that initial feeling, which only takes about a minute or two, usually, maybe 5 minutes. But get to a meeting or get on the phone, it goes away. Then you don't get a DUI, you don't get arrested, you don't have to, go back into rehab, you don't cause family problems, and it's just that one. What do they say? Intellect over emotion, right? Isn't that the saying? Intellect over emotion is what we say in Jersey.
Okay.
So you want to kind of think it through before you act emotionally.
Sure. And honestly, there's nothing going to get better by picking up a drink or a drug.
No.
It's not going to get better.
That moment, it will. That second, when you pick it up, it will feel better. But it's not going to get better.
No.
After that second is gone.
Right. You're going to regret it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I think we gave out some helpful hints for maintaining sobriety.
Absolutely. And we would like to thank Taylor again at Genesis
Definitely want
House.
to thank Genesis House. They've been wonderful on mainstay.
Hit that subscribe button and call Mike at
978-746-1717.
And you can call Genesis House at 800-737-0933. We're here 24/7. Don't be afraid to pick up that phone. Don't be afraid to call Mike. Don't be afraid to call that 800 number at whatever time. We're here to help you out. So,
all right,
Mike, another good show.
Great show, Ed.
Yep.
Thanks, Ed.
Stay sober, everybody.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.